Welcome to the third part of what Star Wars A New Hope would look like if R2 and 3PO were destroyed in the escape pod at the beginning of the movie. If you have not yet watched the first two parts, I'd highly recommend doing that first, or this is going to make absolutely no sense to you. I'll also include a link to the first two parts in the description and comments below. And without further ado, let's jump right back into the story. We're on board the Millennium Falcon traveling through hyperspace, and pick up with Luke again practicing against the training drone while Obi-Wan looks on. And sitting alone at the Dejeric table is Chewbacca looking very bored. Han then enters and says, "Your Fulcrum friend just contacted us again. Looks like everything is a go for whatever this is supposed to be." Han is about to turn and head back to the cockpit when he stops and looks directly at Obi-Wan. "Oh, and he wanted me to tell you that this agent's name they have aboard this battle station we're heading for is Commander Cody. Apparently that's supposed to mean something to you." Obi-Wan's eyes go wide and Luke notices the look and turns his saber off and asks, "You know him?" Obi-Wan grins and nods. "He was the commander of my battalion during the Clone Wars, the 212th, and he was a good friend. He'll have everything under control on his end." Han rolls his eyes and says, "Well, how lucky for us that we're going to have the help of some relic left over from the Clone Wars." And Obi-Wan quickly rebuts, "Cody was the finest commander in the Clone Army, and in my experience, there's no such thing as luck." Han makes a dismissive gesture to all that and only says, "Come on, Chewie, we're coming out of hyperspace soon, and I'm going to need your help up in the cockpit while I get everything ready for this crazy plan." Obi-Wan and Luke are then left alone, and Luke opens his mouth to ask something, but Obi-Wan cuts him off. "Remember what I told you, Luke. You and your sister are to seek out Yoda on Dagobah." "And what about you?" Luke asks back. Obi-Wan lays a firm hand on Luke's shoulder. "You needn't worry about me, Luke. I have my own plan for escape, and I promise we shall see each other again." Luke shakes his head and is about to say something, but again Obi-Wan interrupts him. "Remember, the Force will be with you, always." We're then in a hangar bay aboard the Death Star, and Darth Vader is there along with a small contingency of stormtroopers and officers. One of the officers goes up to Vader and says, "My lord, a Corellian freighter has just come out of hyperspace and is asking permission to land. They say they have the Jedi renegade Obi-Wan Kenobi on board." Vader gives one firm nod and says, "Very good, Lieutenant. Grant them permission to land, and then you and your men are to clear the hangar bay." The lieutenant hesitates and sputters out, "My lord, clear the hangar bay?" "Yes, Lieutenant. I will deal with Kenobi myself." The lieutenant then bows and scurries off, motioning for all his troops to follow, which they do. We're then back aboard the Falcon, and Han and Luke are dressed as Imperial officers and standing below the ladder that leads up to the top escape hatch, the one Lando rescued Luke through in The Empire Strikes Back. Luke is fiddling with his uniform and complains, "I look ridiculous in this." Han says back, "Sorry kid, it's the only size I've got." Luke frowns and asks, "Why do you even have these?" Han just shrugs, "Well, in my line of work, you never know when looking like an Imperial might come in handy." They're both then interrupted by Chewie growling something over the comm. Han tells Luke to be ready because they'll be landing soon. We're then back with Vader in the empty hangar bay watching the Falcon come in for a landing. Moments later the ramp lowers and out walks Obi-Wan with Chewbacca behind him pointing his bowcaster at him and prodding him forward. Obi-Wan calmly walks right up to Vader and stops, and the two stare at each other but neither says a word. Finally Vader raises his head to look up at Chewbacca and says, "You may leave him with me, Wookiee. Go back and tell Jabba the Hutt he has the gratitude of the Empire." Chewbacca lets out a small little roar and then turns and heads back up the ramp. That's when we're taken to a shot of the top of the Falcon, and the hatch opens and Luke and Han pop out, and Han immediately says in a whisper, "This is never going to work." Luke frowns, "Why didn't you say so before?" Han replies, "I did say so before." Luke then starts to head towards the edge of the ship, but first says, "Fine, then I'll do this alone. But don't forget, this princess is rich, and you'll be passing up on every credit the rebellion has promised you for helping." Han seems to debate it for a moment, but then ends up following Luke and muttering to himself the whole way. We're then back with Kenobi and Vader, and as the ramp of the Falcon starts to raise back up, it's Vader who finally speaks first. "We meet again at last, my old master." Obi-Wan calmly stands there for a long moment before replying, "Anakin Skywalker was the only apprentice I ever had, and you are not him." Vader seems annoyed by that response and starts the pace. "I have done what Anakin Skywalker and the Jedi could not. I have brought peace and stability to the galaxy." Obi-Wan looks ever so amused by that statement. "Have you? To me it seems as if the galaxy is still at war, and all you've actually done is betray everything and everyone you once believed in. If Padme..." But before Obi-Wan can finish, Vader ignites his saber. "You will not speak that name." We then quickly switch to Han and Luke running across the empty hangar bay while the Falcon fires up its engines and starts to take off. The two reach a door, and as they approach it, it opens, and on the other side stands an old clone trooper in a black officer's uniform. "Commander Cody," Luke says hopefully. Cody nods and waves them into the corridor behind him, but that's when he notices Vader, red saber ignited, pacing before Obi-Wan and just says, "General?" We then jump back to Vader and Obi-Wan. "You have hid from me all these years," Vader comments, "and come back now to rescue the Princess of Alderaan. Why?" Obi-Wan looks completely unfazed by the question, merely repaying a favor owed to her father, Bail Organa. "He was the one who saved me after Anakin Skywalker betrayed the Jedi." Vader strides angrily right up to Obi-Wan. "It was the Jedi who betrayed me. They betrayed the Republic." Obi-Wan shakes his head ever so sadly. "You really believe that, don't you?" Vader then declares, "It is the truth." "From a certain point of view," Obi-Wan quickly says. "Or perhaps I should say, from your Emperor's point of view. For he has done nothing but manipulate you. You know this to be true, Anakin." The scene then switches back to Luke, Han, and Cody, and it's Han that says to the other two, who have gotten lost in watching the confrontation between Obi-Wan and Vader, though they're too far away to even hear what's being said, "Come on, the old man said all that really matters is getting the princess out of here." It's Cody that then says, "Right, of course, the mission. If anybody can handle Vader, it's General Kenobi." The three turn and head down the corridor, but both Luke and Cody stop after only a couple steps and can't help but look back. We're then back with the other two, and Vader asks, "Why did you really come back?" Obi-Wan gives him a little half grin. "To show you that you chose the wrong path, for I shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine." Obi-Wan grabs his lightsaber from within the folds of his robe and ignites it, but all he does is hold it up and shut his eyes. Vader has seen enough and swings at him, but of course Obi-Wan disappears an instant before the blade actually hits him. Both Cody and Luke manage not to cry out, though we can tell they wanted to. Han also sees Obi-Wan literally disappear and comments to no one in particular, "I've been from one end of this galaxy to the other, seen a lot of strange things, but never anything like that." It's finally Cody that says, "We have to finish this mission," and encourages the other two to turn and head down the corridor. After a short time, Cody stops and hands Luke a datapad. "This is everything you'll need to get the princess out of here," he says. Luke looks at it skeptically, and Cody goes on, "These are orders to take the princess from detention block AA-23 to Vader's personal shuttle. Once you get there, just tell them the clearance code and you'll have immediate permission to take off. And once you're clear, jump to hyperspace and get yourself as far away from here as you can." Han and Luke both exchange a look, and Cody seems to sense what they're thinking and explains, "Nobody will question you as long as you show them that datapad." Han asks why that is, sounding less than convinced. "Because according to that," Cody answers, "these orders were issued by Vader himself." Again, Han isn't sold. "And how'd you pull that off?" Cody lets out a little regretful sigh. "I've been commanding the 501st, Vader's Fist we call ourselves, since the end of the Clone Wars. Done a lot of horrible things in that time. This is my chance to make things right." Luke then asks, "So you forged all this? Aren't they going to figure that out pretty quickly?" Cody gives a little grin. "Not until you're long gone, and actually, kid, I'm counting on them figuring out it was me." Cody then says, his grin getting even bigger, "And make sure you hold onto that datapad, because there's something else on there too. The plans to this battle station." Han gives a wry, disbelieving smile. "Well, doesn't this just keep getting better and better, and more convenient?" Cody's eyes narrow on him. "There was a hard copy of the plans kept here on the Death Star, and now that construction is complete, they're being moved to an even more secure location, and Vader and the 501st have been tasked with that transfer." Han still doesn't seem sold. "Taken to a more secure location than this place?" Cody says back and finally silences Han. "They are to be delivered to the Emperor himself." Cody gives them each one last look before saying, "Now get the princess out of here and get those plans into the hands of the rebellion. Finish General Kenobi's last mission." Cody then hurries off, and Luke looks over the datapad and says, "This gives us directions right to the detention block she's being held at." Luke looks up and sees Han standing there, arms folded. "Kid, this doesn't seem way too easy to you?" Luke doesn't seem to understand and just says, "Ben said we could trust him." "And who says I trusted that crazy old wizard, or you?" Han points out. Luke only replies, "Then trust the 25,000 credits you've been promised for helping us." Han seems to weigh all that in his head, and finally reluctantly tells Luke to lead the way. And as Cody promised, everything goes off without any sort of a hitch. Luke and Han get to the detention block, and no one questions anything once they see the datapad. They take Leia to an Imperial shuttle and are cleared without any issues. They then rendezvous with the Falcon and ditch the shuttle in case it's being tracked, and head back to Yavin 4 in the Falcon. Once there, things begin to play out much like they did in the regular version of A New Hope. Everyone is happy to see Leia and apologizes to her for what happened to Alderaan, but she is only concerned about having the plans analyzed so that they can find the weakness Jyn Erso mentioned. We're then back on board the Death Star and see Commander Cody, still in his black uniform, enter Tarkin's office, and he says with just a little hint of a smug grin, "You wanted to see me, Grand Moff?" Tarkin says nothing at first, and instead is reviewing some information on a datapad, seemingly becoming more and more disturbed by what it says. Finally, he sets it aside, and its expression is completely impassive. "Yes, Commander Cody, I wanted to thank you for your recent exemplary service to the Empire." Cody's smug look is replaced by one of confusion. "I'm not sure I understand, Grand Moff." Tarkin almost looks rather amused and says, "You have been feeding information to the rebellion for some time now, have you not?" Cody looks absolutely flabbergasted. How did we know?" Tarkin finishes for him. "Because it was our idea." Cody looks more confused than ever, but then his hand goes up and touches the scar on the side of his head. The control chip, it was supposed to be removed. Tarkin's smug grin grows. It was, and it was replaced with a newer version, one that allowed us for greater control. Cody looks utterly devastated and says to himself, "I betrayed him again. I betrayed my general again." "Indeed you have," Tarkin confirms, "but you will be pleased to know you have served your Emperor well once more, for the plans you turned over to the rebellion intruders will not reveal any weakness in this battle station. In fact, they have been fitted with a tracking device that will lead us right to the rebels' hidden base that we have been searching for some time." Without another word, Cody draws his sidearm and points it right at Tarkin and says, "This is for all my brothers and the Jedi you made us betray." Very quickly, Tarkin then says, "Execute Order 33. Cody's eyes then go blank, and he points the sidearm at the side of his own head. The scene then shifts to Tarkin, who carelessly watches as we hear one single shot from a blaster. We then jump to a shot of most of the Rebel Council we saw in Rogue One, again gathered around the table arguing. It is General Draven's voice who is heard above the rest. "No weakness? Jyn Erso was wrong, or this has been an Imperial trap from the start." As the arguing continues, the cameras focus on Mon Mothma, who is saying nothing and instead looking on in great sadness. Another officer runs up to her and whispers something in her ear, and the look on her face darkens even further. When she speaks, everyone else falls silent. "They've found us. The Death Star is here. We must begin evacuation immediately." Despite the warning, no one says a word or even makes a move. Everything is completely silent, all looking at Mon Mothma, waiting for her to say more. But it is instead Leia who speaks up. "I know what you're all thinking, but this is not the end. This weapon of theirs will only turn more systems against them, and we will rally those systems to our cause. They no doubt think this is their day of final victory, but it will instead lead to their ultimate defeat. Now get to your ships and meet at the emergency rendezvous point." Leia then falls silent, and everyone starts looking around, waiting for someone to say something either for or against her words. But instead nobody says a word, and quickly everybody goes into action. We then get a scene of Luke going up to Leia, with the chaos of the evacuation going on all around them, and the first thing Luke does is apologize to her, but Leia smiles and assures him that she knows this is not his fault. Luke then looks like he wants to say something to her, but all he blurts out is, "I have to leave." Leia looks confused. "Leave? Why? You said you were a good pilot, and Biggs Darklighter has vouched for you. We could really use you here." Luke looks guilty. "I know, but I think I may be able to help the rebellion in another way." Leia asks how, and Luke goes on to explain briefly that Obi-Wan told him about his father being a Jedi, and that he now is going to be trained as one himself, though he says nothing to her about being his sister. Leia wistfully tells Luke that her father used to tell her stories about how heroic the Jedi were, and that if it's his destiny to become one, he should go, and they'll even let him take a ship. She also says that she doesn't know why, but she completely trusts and believes him. It's just a feeling she gets, and usually her feelings turn out to be right. Luke still looks a little guilty and says, "Maybe I should stay for now, and worry about all this Jedi stuff later. I spoke with Biggs and he said how much you guys need pilots, so I think I can help you here." Leia smiles gently at him and says, "We can find other pilots, Luke, but I don't know that we're going to find another Jedi. Go, follow your destiny, and don't worry, I promise you, the rebellion will strike back." And with that, the movie comes to an end. Well, that's all I got for you this time. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of the conclusion of the story, and let's talk some Star Wars. Also, if you enjoyed this video, check out some of my other ones, or go ahead and subscribe. If you've already done all that, then thanks for your continued support. If you want to know when I upload new videos, hit the notification button or just follow me on Twitter. And as always, thanks for watching.